there, but so purpose of the meeting tonight was to we have, some new members on council since all of this was conceived. We had a first initial bid that went out and came back with only one bidder, and the price generally around $10 million, which we all agree was a little pricey for where we wanted to be. And so we wanted to kind of talk about what's in there, what needs to stay in there, what other things we might consider now with the new council. And there was kind of a process, obviously, that got us where we are now. And maybe Mr. Horton can kind of maybe give us a brief rundown on kind of how we got where we are, and we can look at what's currently in the current plan and then go from there.
All right, so good evening, everyone. I'm going to apologize for being sitting down, but I can run the computer from here a lot better than I can from up there. So this is the overall floor plan, and if you'll remember back when we originally purchased the building, we had colored squares, and we said we're going to do this and that. That's pretty much what we've done here. For the benefit of the group, I'm going to enlarge this and just kind of take you on a tour of the facility. At the bottom of the page, you'll see where it says entry. That is the main entrance coming in as it is right now. Very minor tweaks there, cleaning up, if you will, and some changes. You'll notice that one room, once you come into the main entry into the foyer of the area, that room that goes back off to the right, that is where we can take applications and things of that nature. If we need to meet with a member of the public, that room will certainly be available. Then you'll walk into the main hallway, which we referred to as the Grand Hallway, I-95 and all kinds of things. But going back to the left, you'll see the main conference room, the big conference room, which is already there. There will be no changes to that room other than some cleaning up and things of that nature. You'll enter into a corridor that will house the administration, the executive suites, if you will, myself, the assistant city manager, the HR director, the mayor. Across the hall will be the executive assistant. There will be what we're referring to as a library. We have a lot of old historical books from meetings and things that have accumulated over time, but that provides us a room where we can have it in there where folks want to go in and look at different books or want to see what really did happen with the shrimp project. You'll be able to go there and open the book, and you can kind of see some history to the project. That's the intent there. Then you've got the assistant HR office directly across from the HR director. Then there's room for file storage. We have some additional open office space as you go up the area. And then there's an open work area that's a part of it with another library, i.e. storage area. To the right of the page, when you look at it, that is our finance section. That is where their offices are housed. They'll have we're proposing a conference area, the different office areas. Then to the right of the page where you see where it says finance, that's where the CSRs will be. That's where you'll pay your water bill, just like you do right here in this building. It'll be where the CSRs. We did add some additional spaces there for if we do have to have growth of something, there's room to grow into those areas. The men's and women's bathroom are as they are, which are ADA compliant as we speak. On the far right-hand side, you'll see the clerk and the assistant city clerk offices. And I'm going to take you kind of even a little bit further to the right. That secure storage space that you see is the clerk's storage space. Currently, we have storage, one in the city clerk's office. We have another room where we have storage there. We also have storage space at our police department in a secure lockup area. So all of it will be brought back to that area and will be placed in that secure storage area. Above that, you'll see IT storage. So I'm going back to the left now. To the far left at the bottom, you will see the area that is referred to as Main Street, with a conference area, meeting spaces, additional offices with restrooms. To the top of that, you'll see an area that's referred to as a nest office, or that's a nesting area for businesses that need to meet with a client, but they don't have an office here in St. Mary's and they want to meet with someone. They can come and schedule a time through our Main Street. It's kind of a nesting / incubator space, if you want to consider that. So that space is there. You'll also see a production area that we've also included in that space. Moving directly up the page to the midsection, you will see, get back over, you'll see where IT, their offices will be, and their IT, where all the CPUs and all the switching and all that, it's already there. That room will not change. It'll just have a lot more electronic equipment placed inside. Then you've got the council chambers, which is the oval shaped, with spaces for all the elected officials, the attorney, press, and myself and the assistant city manager. Moving directly across the page, we'll go into planning and zoning, with 2 offices, a lobby area, and area for additional pod-like, if you will, for our building inspectors. They're not there a lot during the day because they're out in the field, so that space is kind of open to a degree. That is their area. If you've ever been in here on a Friday when it's court date, you will know that this room that you're sitting in is currently being used as our courtroom, our municipal court. It also impacts everything that we do up and down the hallways, to include going to the restroom, because there's people, and y'all please I apologize for the pun, they're stacked in here like dirty clothes. Literally, there's folks everywhere. So making that municipal court on the top of the page that you see on the far left, it provides for space for our, what's it called, the attorney, that public defender. It also has space for our restitution company that we work with on a daily basis. Area for our clerk of court, the judge, and file storage. There's probation space, and everybody can kind of see that. To the center of the building at the top of the page, you will see one that says events. This was originally designed to be almost like a community room, if you will, for folks our boards and authorities to meet. It was also designed to be able to serve as a emergency operations center for the city of St. Mary's in the time of a hurricane. That's the reason at the top of the page you'll see a small men's and ladies' restroom that includes a shower. As most of you know, some of us are on location during hurricanes for long periods of time, and we really need a shower at some point during that time because Charlie smells. I'm sorry to say it out loud. Sorry. The space off to where you see events, lobby, it says production, meditation, flex space. Those are pretty much open rooms as of right now. Originally, the production room was designed because we were thinking of having like a podcast situation where we could talk about what's going on in the city on a regular basis. We'd like to be able to do that almost on a weekly basis. So that's what that room was originally designed for. And then the flex space is for our department heads, i.e. our chiefs, public works director, when they're stuck at City Hall for meetings almost back to back, but they've got a minute, they could run to check a email or take care of something. That's a space where they can go do that as well. Moving back down the page towards the council chambers, you'll see the council offices and a space for the mayor pro tem. Off to the right of the page, you will find a break room, which is the open space that's there now. When you walk in down that main corridor going towards the senior center, you'll see one that doesn't have a door. It's just open. That's going to be the break area for employees and everything like that. The exercise room is actually in existence. It's already there. You just have to go through the warehouse to get through. But that provides a space if someone wants to have exercise during their lunch hour. That is the real quick overview of what council had previously approved. So that's your quick tour, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. So I guess I want to start with just maybe asking council opinions about, I say in particular, we have, a couple new council members and myself that weren't involved in this process. I would also like to recognize that Mr. David Amos, the architect, is here in the audience with us to kind of take notes and hear what we have to say, and appreciate him making the trip to be here with us tonight. But obviously a challenging situation when you keep having turnover and different opinions or whatever. But hopefully we can,
And for
look at
council,
what we're going to do here.
for council's benefit, we also broke this down. Mr. Amos, you're going to have to help me here. We had 3 amendments to the proposal. The main trunk of the building, or the main focus point, or the base bid, was originally basically taking it from where you see the council chambers on the top of the page down to the main wall. That was the original base bid, if I'm correct. Okay. Alternate bids were up at the top where you see the courtroom and that other room, the EOC room, if you will. Over was another alternative, and another alternative was some of the outside decor. Is that the facade? Facade. He's teaching me new words. That was also included as a part of that. But we had broke it down that way because if the bids did come in like they did, we can go back in and say, okay, what's the meat of what we need to be able to do? And that being the council chambers down. There is some room to manipulate additional space there if we need to. And we can manipulate whatever. This is where we're at.
So could you refresh our memories on the bids that came in for the 3 options that you just
Right off the
outlined?
top of my head, and I apologize, but the base bid was just over $7 million. And then the other addendums, if you will, they added up to that other $3 million. And I'm sorry, I don't have that exact breakdown.
So that would be the council offices,
The north side, or the top of the page.
the events room,
Yes, ma'am.
the municipal court.
And council office.
Yeah. So, and did we say that the Main Street area was originally designed, all that square footage for the chamber and maybe some other
There was
entities in there?
additional tenants that were looking at that and that have made other choices since that time.
Right. So all that square footage at this point is not necessarily needed.
No, ma'am. However, I would recommend that if we were looking at doing something with that space, that the taking and enlarging the planning and zoning area, and and the reason I'm saying do that, to include the Main Street group, because they are doing business license and they're working hand in hand with the building and planning and zoning.
Well, and one thing, and I know Ms. Ryan, I believe, has put in everyone's boxes, and she and I have had conversations about the possibility and whether or not there would be, intention among the council to possibly, we've talked about some other things, for some of that space, whether an incubator program, economic development kind of, for new businesses, those kinds of things. But the other idea was possibly for some sort of cultural arts, theater type situation, which might allow our local community theaters to have a nice space to put on their performances and things. Have you ever been over to Fernandina, to the Amelia Community Theater? Very nice space they have there for their performances, and to possibly allow us to have something similar that or at least that would meet that need as well. And I know she's in support of that and has put letters to everyone's box to that effect for us to consider that proposal as we take into consideration changes or things we might want to do here and make available. And whether that possibly is a reconfiguration of that top space where the events is, to allow for, like I say, that space to be kind of flexed between theater situation. Obviously, if we're having emergency operations, we're probably not having theater. So those two could probably coexist nicely together. But just like I say, just one idea for us to consider. As possible usage might be some funding available, for that out there in the private sector or public sector, for cultural arts that could help cover some of the expense of that. So just a thought as well. So
It just something similar to what you just stated is, at the GMA conference, one of the, I sat through a presentation on entrepreneurial friendly cities. And, the value of small businesses is anything but small. And sometimes it's hard to get started and they don't have the desired office space. But one of the cities spoke up and they turned one of their city buildings into, don't want to call it a club, but just like a membership-based service where they have meeting spaces and offices available for small businesses. And their memberships ran from as low as like $45 or $50 up to $700 or $800, and that's depending on the size of the space and the amount of use you might need. So, the lower membership might get you one or two days out of the month where you need an office to use or a conference room to use. If you need a permanent office space or a temporary office space, but you have a month-to-month contract or whatever the case may be, that you would be on the higher end because that's your day-to-day operation. So a shared space, which could include possibly the theater if there's a room there big enough that would accommodate that, but that's not a full-time gig, where you have a city staff member or be it Candace or whomever that would fall under, that would actually keep up with the schedule of the office spaces where you do have a little bit of a revenue stream coming in to kind of cover the cost and expenses in the building. But it's a low membership to give somebody a large benefit, trying to get off the ground with a small business.
I like that idea.
While Mr. Amos is here too, I know there's a lot of space in the current design that has drop ceilings, and the space already has some acoustics built in. And we are wondering about the air handling system and having to modify that and all the lighting, and whether or not you could design offices in such a way that we would leave the open ceilings if we are able.
We can
And-
certainly take a look at it and see
Oh, the clerk is asking if you would please come to the microphone for the people watching at home.
Mayor, Councilman.
My son don't. Nowadays.
Mayor, council, to answer your question, yes, there are possibilities we can look at with that. There are certain areas we have to have both fire separation and also sound separation. So there are particular areas that there will be confidential conversations that we need to be aware
What
of.
areas would those be?
Usually the conference areas. There would be some offices, I think personnel, certainly you wouldn't want those walls need to go all the way up and have certain acoustic control in them, but
And then secure areas such as city clerks' areas
yes.
would need to be more secure with, I'm not sure what, one of the other plans I provided there was the ceiling surfaces, but I know the secure storage area and the safe, those obviously would have secure ceilings, but
Hard ceilings, yes.
yeah, I'm not sure. We just have a regular drop ceiling in the city clerks, and I'm not sure if that's adequate or not, but, you know, for somebody climbing up in the ceiling and dropping down in another room easily or whatever, but those are some things, like I say, certainly for consideration that need to happen.
So, how much more money is it gonna cost to those enclosed offices? How are you gonna get air conditioning and heat in there? I mean,
We were planning on reusing all of, the majority of the existing rooftop systems.
do what now?
We were planning to reuse all of the existing rooftop systems
Okay,
and reduct into those
so
spaces.
that's not gonna be a humongous job.
Should not be, no.
Okay.
Going to more of an open ceiling concept, we'll just have to evaluate it from the mechanical standpoint, see what the
There's a-
best solution's gonna
There's a
be.
main trunk system in there now that has just dead-end drops of where the air is coming out. Is that correct?
In some areas, yes.
In some areas.
Yeah.
And so it'd be just tying into those trunks with flexible ducting and,
If you had the opportunity to go in the building prior to the demo phase, there were several offices in there that had what Mr. Amos is talking about. That main office, once you come out of where or the city manager's office would be, it had a flex pipe that came down into that space with the grid ceiling.
Yeah.
So that it's just a flex trunk coming off and going to it.
That's right. Yes.
Well, our
And
planning
that-
oh, sorry, go
And,
ahead.
and that was my biggest question with the enclosed offices, is how you were gonna get heat and heat and air conditioning in there.
If you can get in there.
Well, but the modifications to the existing system, I guess, is that your question?
Yes.
Yeah.
So do you need to have, you have 13 bathrooms on either side of the council chambers. Is it necessary? Is there a certain requirement for how many bathrooms?
the bathrooms are.
Those bathrooms are existing.
Which ones? This side? So this is the addition.
No, I'm sorry. Oh, you're right.
See how there's 13 up there, 13 down there?
Yeah, I think both bathrooms are already there, aren't they?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Those two
So
large
those are already
large
in
bathrooms are.
they exist.
Where you see the bathrooms and, if I remember right,
Right. there's
you've
some-
got the ones above where the emergency operations center was going to be that we were talking about. You also have additional bathrooms down on the very bottom, in the executive hallway. And then there was 2 bathrooms in the, Main Street area.
Well, but we're asking about the existing
So if you have,
bathrooms. So those are
They're all good.
here and here, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
if you have 26 bathrooms, I mean, is it just a distance travel? I can understand about the showers, but those other bathrooms, is it necessary to have more since you already have 26 bathrooms?
The ones in the municipal court, absolutely, because that's going to be under this plan, would have been operated totally independent of the rest of the facility.
Leaving,
It's the same in the Main Street JDA chamber area. That was designed to be operated totally independent of the rest of the facility.
The Main Street area was also taking consideration of having nighttime events when the actual building would have been closed, but you'd have had public in there for an event of some sort. And they don't have to walk all the way through the building to get to those buildings. That's what the consideration was when we were laying this out.
Gotcha. Let me just ask it this way, just I wrote down 5 possible things of cost savings. If you could, tell me which one is possible to save and which is not possible to take off the list. The one thing I had was the bathrooms, the extra bathrooms, the event space, as the mayor already pointed out, and just maybe coming back to that later or renting that. The temporary using the municipal court, just like we do now, in the council chambers, so leaving that out. The drop ceilings, as Ms. Lynn pointed out, and then the removal of council offices. There were just 5 things that I had that would save money. Which of those are doable, and is that something we can look at?
We can look at whatever you want to look at. I would recommend, depending on what happens with that Main Street area, whatever we come up with there, that may be a means of dropping some bathrooms. I personally would recommend keeping the court there. It may not be one of the things we build out immediately, but I would keep the separation of those facilities.
Well, I'm not saying not, I had written down temporarily, so
Yeah.
leaving that off right now. If you left that off and they can operate in the municipal court, but we had the space to
Right.
put that later, just to get in, because I know everybody
And
wants to get in.
And that was the reason for the addendum on the bid, because that is something we can come back later and do that whole north, I keep saying north, but that top of the page build out at a later time.
Right.
Absolutely. I mean, that was the reason we had looked at it in that manner.
So, and Charlie and I went over and looked at the space, and I know we have the sub-museum going in some of the warehouse space.
That's
and the
correct.
wall, they are actually taking all the frontage there, and we talked about the idea of turning the wall the other way so that we would have a unit with frontage space available that we could lease, to somebody else and generate some revenue. So instead of having the wall run parallel to the frontage space, it would be perpendicular and give them.
And I'm not trying to, we need to go back and look at the agreement. I'm trying to remember if we were allowed to
I
do.
mentioned that there was part of the purchase agreement that we can only have so much space leased out to the private sector. Is that
Right.
correct? Or for retail space?
Yeah.
And we don't know how much that is?
I'll go back and
Was
dig
it like,
that up.
it's like 10, I think it was like 10,000 square feet, maybe, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, what if it's like a business incubator or somebody, some
that-
space that the state could provide funding for,
Yeah. It was,
If-
I know it was retail space that we discussed, so that might not fall under that umbrella where we could have the incubator space that we described.
Yep.
I guess one of my questions to the court area, I think there's seven offices in addition to the conference space and holding room, and of course then file rooms and whatnot. And I'm not quite sure about the seating capacity there compared to, what, I guess those are benches, pews, or,
We were looking at pews,
yeah.
old church pews, actually. Easier to clean, they don't stain, and it's, just,
Sure. I just wonder about, especially if we're trying to make room for a potential theater or something, kind of what, if there's any contraction that we could do in that space a little bit that would still be very serviceable or not. That's obviously not my area expertise to know what they need, but with the amount of offices, and I know we wanted office for, clients to meet with their attorneys and stuff, but and maybe we have the bare minimum there. I don't know.
If you were looking for a space that you could do a community theater or something like that in, I would look more towards that event space where you see the events in the event lobby, that area in there, because it is a little bit more flexible. It is also able to, and excuse the term, quarantine from the rest of the building. I guess that's the right way to say that. So we don't have to have staff there when they're running their events, if that makes any sense. I mean, we may have to figure out some means of making sure they have access to the large restroom at the top of the building, on top of the page.
And I guess to the other point, Mr. Nascimeno's question, the council offices,
We don't need those.
No, we don't.
obviously.
We don't.
I don't.
I'm one of the original people that was on board when we drew up this plan. And at the time, we figured it would cost maybe a couple of $1 million to get in, but it proved that it's a lot more now. I agree that we need to try to cut corners as much as we can, but I want the city hall to be I don't want to piecemeal it, for one thing. If we're going to do it, I think we should do it right. And I don't feel like we should cut a few corners just to save $15,000 or $20,000. If it's a great amount of money that we can save, that's fine. But things are going to go up every day. And the longer we wait and the longer we postpone this, the higher things going to get. And especially with tariffs, it's liable to go up even more. So, we can twiddle our thumbs and try to save money with a bathroom taken out here or something taken out here. And it's going to inconvenience us later on down the line, where if we leave some of these things in, we know what we need and just go ahead and pay for it and stop waiting for prices to increase over and over again. If you take another bid in another year, 6 months or so, prices may go up again. So, my thing is, if you want it done and you want it done right for the citizens of St. Mary's, go ahead and get it done.
I don't disagree with any of that in terms of, I think we need to go ahead and get in there. And that allows us to do something with this property. But I guess in my mind, the essential question is are we willing to ask the citizens, which are primarily residential taxpayers, to spend $7 million? That was on the base quote, to get into some office space. Or are we going to ask the people who know how to do this, which would be you and some other engineers, if we can really truly trim a couple $1 million off of this? Is there a way to do that and still have it be nice space? Because I can tell you that I've heard from a lot of my constituents that they don't want to spend $7 million, and that's the same conversation we had about the budget. And we had a line item in there for $6 million, and we took it out because we were going to go back to the drawing board and try and do some substantive reductions in cost, and none of us know how to do that. I mean, we need to rely on your expertise to help us, show us some options that might really reduce the cost by a few $1 million. And I don't know if that's even possible.
Well, if we eliminate the entire north of this project, that's half the building. So all the council chambers, events, municipal court, we don't do that right now. We get into City Hall, and then we sell this, and then we go back and then build out what we want later.
But
I mean-
that's the base bid, includes not doing
the
this.
total-
That's $7 million.
It has nothing to do with municipal court, event space, or
Right,
council
it's just the
offices.
bottom part of it.
It's just
$7
7
million.
And then obviously, the only thing I could think of is bathrooms and drop ceiling.
Yeah.
And you're talking about what, 300 or 400, not even $30,000 for the bathroom?
You know, I've been in some beautiful office space in some bigger cities that's open.
Yeah.
And the acoustics are already good in that building. I mean, it's gorgeous space that we could be very proud of, but I don't know if it's any less expensive. We're finishing off, we have this huge amount of square footage, and we're finishing off a lot of it. I don't know if we need that much square footage either. But I'm pretty sure we don't want to spend $7 million just to get
Well,
in there.
And part of what we attempted to do through the planning process also with municipal court and with a lot of different departments was looking at what current staff levels are, what the current caseload and number of people coming into municipal court, and looking at your community, the size it is now, and knowing it's fixing to increase tremendously. So we've got to be very careful that we don't cut things to a point that in 10 years, your population has swelled and now your staff, everything else is undersized.
I agree with that, too. I mean, I think that's smart.
Well, right now, in this building, we're busting at the seams. You can't go in any office building where you cluttered with boxes and bags and things to try to get around. We knew that we were gonna have to do this several years ago. We were fortunate enough to get into this deal with Express Scripts and get a building that's sizable, a building that we can get anything that we want. And the senior citizens are doing great in their area. And I don't think that the citizens of St. Mary's need anything less. In other words, I want to get this where 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, we have something that we can still be proud of. I don't want us to have this same problem that we're having here in the next 10 years. And like he said, the growth is coming, and we need to prepare for it.
Is there a reason we've had such few bids? Like, what are we doing as far as being aggressive to go after maybe extending our reach for bids?
The one bid we had reached out through the Department of Administrative Services, which has a contract build service, I guess is the way to call it, referred to as Gordian. Sometimes when you go to the shows, you'll meet them. The original, so we dealt with them originally, and that's basically the same group that we got the bid in on. I know that doesn't answer your question. I just wanted to give you a little bit of back history associated with it. We had some local folks that were interested in it and got down, and basically Tom had gotten away from them after we had even extended the bid opening deadline for them to allow them to have additional time to get their numbers and stuff together. And they just at the last minute opted not to provide us with a bid. But we've advertised both statewide, local, everywhere.
Okay, we're gonna need to wrap up
Yeah.
this particular session because we can prepare audio visual for the alcohol hearing. So I think maybe a next step to kind of take some of the comments we've had here. Maybe Robbie and I can communicate with Mr. Amos and talk about some of the options and just see if we can get some ballpark ideas of some things before we go too far in depth.
Well, and in the meantime, I can start evaluating some of the other things that we've discussed to see sort of magnitude of cost.
Yes, sir.
That
Okay, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, we're about to get a whole lot more space, and I don't know it is necessary to build the whole thing.